for joining us. Well, on this program, on this day, the first day of the conditional ceasefire, we've been wanting to check in with a number of people we've spoken to regularly during the last few days and weeks of conflict, of war in Iran. A little earlier in the program, in the previous hour, we reconnected with those Iranians here in London we've been speaking to. And now we want to speak to three Americans familiar to our outside source listeners. Mika, Nora, and Mia are all friends. They're on different parts of the US. They all voted for Donald Trump in the last election. We've dialed them all back to get a sense of their thoughts on this, the first day of the ceasefire. And Mika, when we speak to you, we've noticed that you are the most pronounced Trump supporter. Do you support a ceasefire in a war which did not remove the theocratic regime as Trump suggested he wanted in the first place?
Well, thank you for having me on again. And I support the ceasefire. One, I do not like to see, any civilian casualties or war in general. But I absolutely support the ceasefire. And I support the ceasefire as it pertains to non-regime change, because the regime change we were never really after. So the Iranian people have to just go ahead and raise up against this regime. But I do support the United States helping the Iranian people try to get rid of that terrible regime.
But that hasn't worked.
Well, that's because, as I understand it, the Iranian people are definitely afraid, and rightfully so. But as Americans, I'm American first, and I do not think Trump should go full on in. But we can only assist or help. We cannot go full on in and do it for them. So the Iranian people will have to, get in the fight.
Let's bring in Nora. You're in Florida. When you saw news of the ceasefire, how did you respond?
I was extremely happy. However, then when I got the terms of it, I was disappointed because I think this is very temporarily. There are many outside factors that we cannot control. Part of it is that Iran would like to be included is the immediate ceasefire of bombing of their allies of Lebanon. However, that has not happened. Last night, we've seen one of the worst bombing campaigns conducted by Israel, and we cannot control what they do, unfortunately. So I do not think this is going to be long lasting. This is extremely fragile, and there's a high risk of collapse because we cannot control certain factors of this. The other thing that I was disappointed about is one of the points that Iran would like is they want us to reimburse them for the damage done to them. I don't support that. Yes, I understand we bombed them. However, the reason why we did was because they weren't cooperating with our request for the enrichment. Lastly, in the Farsi version of the deal, they have a line of enrichment. So basically, this was all a waste. We lost 13 members. We've lost our strong our bases have been destroyed for nothing because we're back at square one. So, yeah, I'm not really confident in this ceasefire.
Mia, do you see it as being at square one?
I see it as, well, first and foremost, thank you for inviting me back.
Sure,
I appreciate it. And I see it as the 10-point plan, as I know it that has been released in American media. I would say it's a tall order. I mean, they want, they want the strait open, and they want to maintain control of the strait. They want all of their sanctions lifted. They want zero conflicts in the entirety of the Middle East. They no longer want United States to have bases in the Middle East. We have hundreds across the pond. We have tons. They don't want us to ever go back into Iran or fight with them ever again. They want reparations. They also want us to unfreeze their frozen assets and release funds to them that we have seized due to terrorism. And also, as Nora mentioned prior, in the Farsi version, they want to maintain the right to enrich uranium. Yeah. So it's quite a tall order. Obviously, things could change. I'm sure once we hit the negotiating table on Friday, we'll know more, hopefully. But also at the same time, we are in this war primarily mainly due to Israel, and Israel seems to do whatever they feel like doing, regardless if President Trump is making any headway. So, I mean, they agreed to a ceasefire, and then 8 hours later in the morning, Israel bombed Iran. So, I mean, it's tough to tell if our
Yeah.
partner, so to speak, isn't on the same page as us.
We know that Israel has carried out strikes against Hezbollah targets in southern Lebanon since the ceasefire. Israel suggests that that front of the war is not covered by the ceasefire. But going back to America, you're all or have been at the very least Trump supporters. Trump's from the Republican Party. You might remember Ronald Reagan from the Republican Party in 1980 asking voters the question when it came to the election, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? So I slightly want to tweak that question and ask you, let's begin, Mika, are you and is America in a better place now than it was at the start of the war on the 28th of February?
I definitely believe we are. You have to understand that Donald Trump is coming in after 4 years of, open borders, of our economy just, going down the drain, and for a multitude of reasons. But I definitely believe that we are in a better place. You have to realize that we're now getting, income through our tariffs. We
Yeah,
are in a better place in
I
the
was
Middle
only
East.
really asking about the last 40 days, to use a
The
very
last 40
narrow
days
frame.
is still
Yeah,
the last 40 days is still the same. The last 40
right.
days have been better than the last 4 years.
Even though
America
prices,
hasn't
energy
gotten
prices have
anything.
gone up in that time.
Absolutely.
You don't mind that?
Even with the increases. Even with the increases in oil prices. We had those increases the entire 4 years under Joe Biden.
Nora, for the last 40 days, are you better off than you were?
Yes, because the border is secure. And that was one of my top reasons for voting for President Trump. However, I don't support new wars. But right now, we haven't had a major incursion of sending our troops into Iran. So I'm still trying to remain optimistic. So, yes, I am better off today than 40 days ago because the border remains secure.
And Mia, where do you stand?
I would say no, just on a fiscal financial standpoint. When oil goes up, food goes up, energy prices go up. So over the last 40 days, the data tells us that energy has gone up, oil has gone up, heating oil has gone up. I live in a cold area, so we just actually had a winter storm 2 days ago.
You're in Boston.
So I actually have to call and get another 100 gallons of heating fuel because we're still having snowstorms up here, and it is over $300 more than it was last time, which puts it at $600, which most American families cannot afford. So no, we are financially not better. And at this point in time, I don't care about a migrant crossing the border. I care about being able to feed my children. And when I have to spend $300 extra that I didn't plan on heating, it makes it difficult to budget for other things.
How do you respond to that, Mika?
Well, again, as I stated, I think on the last time I was on the program, a lot of these occurrences with these rises in prices have absolutely nothing to do with the federal government or even Donald Trump or Iran and oil or anything else. It's mostly local because we have that here in the state of Maryland. And the state of Maryland is the one increasing the oil prices. The state of Maryland is the one increasing the energy prices. And it has nothing to do with what's going on federally. It is all locally done and statewide. So I think Boston it might be in one of those turmoil states where they're just raising taxes, prices, oil, revenue for these big companies.
We'll see, but of course oil prices do reflect the international situation, which is in turn partly reflecting the war in Iran. To all three of you, we really appreciate your time. As always, you've been on the program so much over the last few weeks as we check in on how Trump supporters see the war begun by Donald Trump. To Mika, Nora and Mia, our thanks for joining us on the program. We've also